Welcome to the Life Giving Leader Podcast. Welcome back to the Life Giving Leader Podcast. I know it's been a little while, people, but I'm back and I've got a lot of fun things in store, but this episode is actually kind of finishing up season one, and once we get to this next episode, I'll give you a little more clarity on why I've been absent. God's just been doing a new thing and been working on something that actually launches into the world as this podcast goes live. And so if you're curious more about that before I really get into talking about it, I'll probably be posting a promo video on my social media coming up soon, but so glad to have you back, and got a great episode ahead with the one and only Jon Acuff. Known Jon for a long time, so we get to talk a little bit about sitting in Andy Stanley's office when he was writing for Auto Trader, and just to watch his career over the next 12, 13 years, how it's exploded. And what I love about Jon is it's not happenstance. Jon works really hard, and I'm really grateful for his influence and his I don't know, just his work ethic and the way that he loves people through working really hard to do that. And so it's really a fun episode. But in the next episode I'm going to release is coming in the next couple of weeks, and it's with my friend Josh Turner, who's actually my partner in this nonprofit that we just started called the 1010 Project. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time in the next episode really just diving deep into what stirred our hearts, some of the activities and things that have happened in ministry that allowed us to see the need to serve pastors in a unique way, and what we're going to do about it. And so I'm looking forward to telling you more about that. I know I've been hinting at it for a little while, but it's called the 1010 Project. And you can actually, it's already going to be, the website's already up, 10, the number 10, 10, the word 10, so 1010project.com. You can find out a little bit more about it. And but we'll be talking at length about our heart and our desire to keep pastors healthy. And so that's coming up. But other than that, man, it's been busy. It's been crazy. I'm ready for this pandemic to go away. Had some great trips these last few months. Got to hang out with Compassion in Nebraska. Took some pastors hanging out there and doing some other work. Headed back to Montana a little bit. Got a lot going on. Probably the most important thing you need to know is after 19 years of marriage, my wife has wanted a few things, but one thing she wanted in particular would be our closet designed by Container Store Alpha. What do you call it? Just material and products. And we did that, and we installed it this week, and it's awesome. And so I don't know why it took me so long. Listen, if you're a dude and your wife's been asking for that design, just put down the money, make it happen, and you will not regret a greatly designed master closet. So anyway, that's some of the other really exciting stuff going on. But I don't want to spend too much time on this. Again, I've got a lot going on in the next few weeks that I want to tell you about. So you'll hear a lot from me in the next few weeks. So let's finish this first series really well with my friend Jon Acuff. And again, incredible speaker, working on, I think, his 7th book, and maybe one of the kindest people I know. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Jon Acuff. Welcome back to the Life Giving Leader Podcast. And today I have it's actually been a long time friend now, and someone who we sat together in meetings with Andy Stanley early on, and then our careers have kind of taken off into different spaces. Jon Acuff is with me on Zoom today. How are we doing, Jon?
I'm great. Yeah, that's funny. That was at least 12 years ago. So that's been a dozen years.
It was Auto Trader days for Jon Acuff. That's what I know.
Yeah. And it was meeting with Andy and like 5 other people to talk about, here's the Christmas service. Here's the, yeah, wow. I can't believe it's been that long.
It has been that long. So it's kind of been fun, Jon, to just track along. And you've been at Catalyst throughout a lot of that time. And your career just kind of changed. And so for those that don't know you, Jon, why don't you give us a little background and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. When we first connected, I was working at Auto Trader, great company in Atlanta. We lived there. My wife was from Atlanta. And then I started a blog that got some traction, and I got to write a book out of that. And then I started to kind of experience this world where if you'll hustle, you get to change things and shape things and do things. And There's a lot of the playing field that's level right now. And so I started to do a lot of social media, and then Dave Ramsey hired me to be part of his team. So we moved to Nashville, and I did that for 3 years. And then being around a builder like him, I got the itch to build my own thing. Which is often, you often see church leaders go and build their own church after being at a great church. And so I went and built my own company about 7 years ago. And so still live in Nashville, write books and give speeches. And I'm doing a lot of virtual right now because there's not live events happening. But yeah, that's kind of a quick and dirty summary of the last couple of years.
Jon, I think it's interesting, before we go too far from that, like, we were just talking before we came on that the event world it's changing. It already has changed. I don't think if the doors were open everywhere that it's going to take time for live events. There's going to be a hybrid version of all these things. What are you seeing? What are you thinking about as you're looking at this next, say, 12 months?
Well, one of the questions I'm telling people to ask is, what would have made this season easier? And then go build that. So I know, like, if I looked at my life and said, what would have made this easier? Having an amazing YouTube channel would have made this easier. Because if I had 100,000 subscribers to communicate with, another source of income, a place to share, like, it would have made it easier. I don't have that. So you don't beat yourself up, because that's such a waste of time. But you say, okay, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, a year from now, I want to have that built. So now I'm trying to build that. Like, okay, having a little studio would have made this easier. And so that's what I'm trying to think through is, okay, what would have made this easier? And then how do I go build that? So I'm doing a ton of virtual stuff, but you're right. The way live events work is, it better than anybody. There's 6 months to a year out in the planning and the discussion. So that's when people are like, well, your spring got messed up. You go, yeah, it did. But then the fall, people would be booking the spring in March. And guess what? Nobody was doing in March. Nobody was like, we should have a huge event in like November. So I think it's going to be slow reopening. And I think, like every industry, there's this great filter that's going to happen where they go, wow, that new thing we were forced to do is worth it. Let's keep it. Yep. And wow, that old way we did things, why did we do it that way? I talked to a huge retail company recently, and they said, things that took us a year to do, we did in 10 days. Now, they won't operate on that. Like, the mistake is you go, so let's run at pandemic speed. No, you'll ruin your team. You have to take the average of, here's how it used to take. Here's the fastest, leanest way we could do it. Here's the healthy, sustainable average. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. Yep. But yeah, I'm doing a bunch of virtual stuff, which has been fun. There's benefits in the sense that, like, you can do online polls and interact, and people get to ask questions. Like, every introvert in the world loves to ask a question on Zoom that wouldn't stand up in front of all their peers and go, I'm probably going to look foolish with this question, but so, like, there are benefits. And then I think, I don't think people go, are live events going away? And I'm like, you mean since Socrates, you think this is going to be where, like, no, people stood up in Athens to figure out math. I think, like, we're going to do more live events. I think 2021 is going to be, maybe fall of 2021 will be massive, where people are, like, more people are going to come back to them because they miss them. So I think we'll see a resurgence then. But you're right. It's going to take, just like everything's going to take time.
Takes time. And I know, Jon, when I was leading Catalyst, people would ask, like, people are all saying, just go online, just do these things, and the big events are going away. I was like, they're not. Like, you can't replicate community.
No, face-to-face matters. Like,
you just can't. Yeah, it does, man.
Nuance matters. No, so, like, and we need that. I keep telling people, crisis.
I'm dying for it.
Yeah, everybody. Well, and you are, because, like, crisis magnifies kindness. So, like, the other day I was trail running, big trail, and this old man gave me a double thumbs up, and I'd seen him the day before, and, like, that meant the world to me. Where, like, 6 months ago, I probably would have been like, what's that guy's problem? Why does he give me thumbs up? But because we're so starved, like, a neighbor waving at you and just acknowledging you exist, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so meaningful. So yeah, I don't think we'll ever eliminate the need for that. I think we'll reinvent some parts of it, but there's no way that's going away.
Yeah, that's the church I'm consulting with in Orlando. Very similar thing. And we've made it very clear to the staff, there's not a normal that we're going back to, which is brick and mortar only. This is always going to be brick and mortar and digital. Like, it's going to have to. And so it's exactly what you talked about. And that was forced quickly, but it's going to stay for the long term. And now it's, how do we build around that? And, oh, by the way, we can do this for a lot cheaper than we have, because we've scaled back. We've forced it. It's a great stewardship scenario in a sense. It kind of helps you reset some of that. So let's switch gears a little bit, Jon, and talk about, this one's called Life-Giving Leader. When you hear the phrase a life-giving leader and you're thinking about leadership, what are one or two attributes that come to mind for you when you think of someone who's been life-giving to you?
I think they're great at pace. I think a life-giving leader is great at figuring out the pace of a project and the pace of the development. The word hurry doesn't come out of a life-giving leader's mouth often. And chaos. I've been thinking about that a lot, like chaos and obsession. I'm curious, the Michael Jordan documentary that I think forced a lot of people to go, do you have to live that way to be at that level? And I think that's a really interesting conversation. I mean, I just heard Kobe Bryant's widow say part of what was so sad was that now he was going to make up for all the lost time. And I thought, okay, there's a math. Like, you get to math eventually, where if I'm shooting the basketball 12 hours a day on a Saturday during the off season, I'm not with my family, and that's not good or bad. You get to judge that, not me, but everything has a cost. And so I think life-giving leaders go, okay, here's how we rest. Here's the pace. Here's how we grind. And here's how we really it's not an either or, but I think a life-giving leader is good at pace. That's the first word that comes up.
I love that, Jon.
They calm a situation down, even as they might be speeding up the productivity, speeding up the work.
Yeah. And that leads me to the next question I was thinking about with you is you spend a lot of time talking about your craft and how much you fight for that craft. And whether it's 12 people, I love your story of, speaking with 8 people in a room or one person. It was a catalyst, I believe. And it just kind of spurred you going, I didn't care if it was 2 or 2,000. I'm giving that 2 or that 2,000 everything I have. And so, but you have to do that with pace because you fight for that every day. Talk about that concept for you about working on your craft no matter what.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I heard Jerry Seinfeld talk about that the other day. He was doing an interview with Howard Stern, and Howard Stern mentioned the Michael Jordan documentary and said, it reminded me of the willpower and drive I had. I had willpower. I became the greatest radio host, whatever. And Seinfeld said, well, let me edit that for you. He said, it wasn't willpower. It was love. You had love. Like, you were so in love with that craft that you were willing. He goes, willpower is not eating dessert. That's not willpower. Ultimately fails you every time.
Yeah.
So the love of going, I love an idea and I love sharing an idea and I love figuring out the best way to share the idea. So for instance, Patsy Claremont, who a mutual friend of ours, amazing writer. We had lunch before lunches became illegal, and we got to talk. And she said that she told me something that her first book came back with edits, and there was all this red ink all over the page, and it looked like it was dying. It looked like it was bleeding. And she told the editor, I need a different color next time. And the next time the editor used green ink, and she said, and it looked like I was growing. And I was like, what?
Wow.
That is amazing. So that's the kind of thing, I love ideas like that because I know, dude, if you can shift your mindset from an edit means I failed into an edit means I'm growing, and you did it with changing the color of the ink, that's a powerful idea that Patsy shared with me from 30 years ago that I now get to share with other people. So for me, the craft is about, I love the idea. And if I can figure out how to strip away everything from the idea that's in the way and share it in the biggest way possible. My wife calls it foyer ideas. If you come over our house, there's ideas I'll tell you in the foyer before you've even gotten past the front door. I'm so excited about it. So as a communicator, as somebody who does craft, that's what I care about. Where I get stuck on that is, it's I had my counselor, a friend of mine named Al Andrews. He said, is it ever hard for you to have an idea and not share it instantly with other people? And I said, oh my gosh, not only instantly,
always.
But Twitter, Instagram, always. And he goes, well, you're living a keg party lifestyle right now. People are coming in and they're getting keg party ideas from instant. He said, you need some wine ideas. You need some ideas you have that you put on a shelf, and you only talk about them with a handful of friends, and you let them marinate and grow and become amazing, or otherwise you're just going to become this machine that's spitting out, keg ideas. And I thought that's the kind of thing that really challenged me, because there's so many, the instant gratification of social media for me is super challenging because I can put out a tweet and get 50 people to tell me I'm special. And then that satisfies, or I can spend an hour alone and maybe write 1,000 words, and maybe 12 of them I go, oh, those were the 12, but I had to get through the 988 to find the 12. And so that's the tension for me, is being willing to do that.
I'm impressed with your quick math. That was out of that whole statement. That math that you just did, Jon, was pretty spectacular.
I thought about it in my head.
I wanted to give you some instant gratification. Yeah. And
hey, I was thinking about that. I was like, don't blow this math.
No, this is a chance. 12 from 1,000. 12 from 1,000.
Exactly.
Jon, you've walked this line, and I don't think it's a line, but you speak in business space. You speak in a lot of different spaces, but your faith has always been a very central part, and you speak in faith-based spaces quite often. How do you balance that? How do you find a rhythm to that when you're speaking in spaces that maybe don't even want you to address that element of you? How have you walked that?
I would say Matt Chandler helped me with that a lot. He kind of was like, this was years and years ago. We had a conversation. I think it was at Catalyst Dallas. I think the first thing he said to me was, have you gotten taller? Because he can be pretty mean about people's insecurities. So I think that was the first thing he said to me. And he was like, come here, I just want to hold you. And I was like, you know what, Matt? I don't want that. But then I asked him that question, and he said, here's the thing, Jon, like, go, bloom where you're planted, like, get over yourself. The idea that everywhere you go, you're gonna be like, I've got 30 seconds. I'm going to, do the entire gospel in 30 seconds. I think that a lot of times Christians struggle with the idea that sometimes you only get to be one verse of a song. It's one verse, and God's going to use a lot of other people and a lot of other years to tell that whole song. So when I talk to youth leaders, like, if you're a youth leader, you talk about a depressing job as far as ROI, because 99% of the time you don't get to see the 35-year-old that comes back and says, hey, I brought my kids to church because you poured into me 20 years ago at a time where I hated myself, and I hated you for even trying to love me, but I'm so glad you did. Like, that doesn't happen. And so you pour in, and you just have to remember, I'm one verse of a much longer song that God's going to resolve, in the way he does it. So I think about it that way. And then I just think there's better people for the pulpit than me. I'm not a pastor. Like, that's a special craft. That's a special skill. That's a special calling. That's not what I've been called to do. I've been called to go to the marketplace. I love speaking for corporations. So like Nissan, Comedy Central, like FedEx, like, that's really fun for me. And I write business books. And so I love that I get to go do that space and be the best I can be in that space. And then also, we're all human. Like, we're all, in the same way that, like, when I read The War of Art, like, I think it's the best description of fear I've ever read. And I don't go, this doesn't sound like it came out of Corinthians. Like, it's a really beautiful description. And so I remember, like, okay, I think it's Reggie Joyner, our mutual friend, who always talks about, like, there's no golf in the Bible. So if you were like, I can only use the Bible to learn, you'd be like, you're going to suck at golf. Because there's nobody talks about a long game in golf. Nobody talks about a short approach. Like, so I kind of think about it that way too.
That's good, Jon. And that speaks my love language when you talk golf. I love that piece of the puzzle. One of the things you mentioned this about growing where you're planted. I've always admired that about you. You've been patient. Even because what I know is when we sat in those meetings, the jokes and the humor and the communication was there then. Like when we sat 12 years ago.
See, I think I've been the opposite. I would say, like, I feel super impatient. Like, that's this summer, there's a couple things I'm putting down is like, okay, what do I want you to work on? Like, I'm reading Carrie Newhoff, again, mutual friend, just gave me this book that I don't even know how to say it. The Genesee Diary by Henry Nouwen. Like, nobody's read this book, and it's brilliant. And he spent 7 months at a monastery learning about his compulsions and his illusions. And I was like, oh, the compulsion of speed. Because my problem is, like, if I accomplish 10 things if I say I want to accomplish 10 things and I accomplish 12, I'm mad I didn't accomplish 15. And so, like, wow, that's a way to be constantly disappointed in your life. And so the sense of, I could grow up bigger. Like, I had a mentor the other day say, are you good at celebrating? And I just had to laugh. And I was like, what is celebrating? Like, no, I'm on to the next thing.
Right.
And so, like, the patience to pause and go, that thing went well and it was good. And this is not wasted effort. And that is because I'm pretty driven. A lot of the people I interact with are pretty driven. And I'm curious about how do you be super high performing, but also high peace? Like, I only think like those are really different things, but I think there's some way to do it. And I don't know the way yet.
But I think for you, Jon, patience can also look like obedience. Like you walked in step on some of these things, and your mind, your mind moves fast. And so therefore you probably feel like you're moving fast all the time. But as someone who's on the outside watching you step into space, it's been clear that you've been faithful to those steps, to the next step, the next opportunity to steward that influence, to steward that opportunity, to steward that thing. To me, that's the patience required. I think it's when you jump ahead of those and try to go get yourself on that thing. And when you step ahead and you try to go make that happen, that's where you can thwart that plan. That's
I have to remember the best things that have happened to me, I received, I didn't force.
Yep.
So I received them, I didn't force them. So let's take the opportunity with Dave Ramsey was one of the best things that ever happened to me. That happened because somebody on his staff read a blog I wrote called Stuff Christians Like and said, hey, we should come have this guy be a speaker. Like, just speak at our devotionals, not come higher, and that was a multi-year process. And so I didn't say, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this, but I had to create the blog. So there is the sense of like, I had to put something out there. I know it's always better when I get to receive it versus try to like white knuckle it. There's a lot less joy.
So you just re-released Stuff Christians Like, which I remember, it was early on in social media when you were asking like, what are some terrible phrases? And I remember throwing one at you, sloppy agape. And I think it even made one of your blog posts, So, but humor has always been very central to your communication, to your craft. Why has humor always been such an important piece of the puzzle for you?
I just think I love it. Like I grew up with it. My dad would take me to comedy clubs when I was in high school. Like we would go see Brian Regan, and so he always used humor in his communication. He's a pastor. So I grew up around it as a value system. Like I tell people, I don't even think I'm the funniest person in my family. My youngest brother, Bennett, who's a lawyer, is hilarious.
Yeah.
And we joke all the time, but I just think it's really fun. And the people that are good at it are really smart. There's great comedians or social commentators. So like when Chris Rock does a special, I heard Chris Rock say something, I'm going to butcher it, but he said something in his most recent special that he went to his daughter's high school, like orientation. And they were like, you can be anything you want. And he's like, not true. He said, you can be anything you want. You can be anything you're talented at, that people are hiring for when you know somebody. Like he put all these conditions. And I was like, that's actually really true. Like I don't know that there was ever a storyline where I was in the NFL. Like I looked it up. There have been 7 people my height in the history of the NBA. In the entire history. Like 7. So like, it's not a bad thing for me to be like, I just feel like I could have been Rudy. I could have figured out how to become amazing at basketball. Like that probably wasn't going to be it, but I can be the best me. And a guy like Chris Rock can say that in a way that's so funny that causes you to pause and go, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was from a business perspective, it's a great niche. Like how many boring business presentations have you seen where you're like, oh, there was like 80 slides.
And they had great content. That's the crazy part.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to do the work of the audience of trying to shift through it. And so like, my background's advertising. So my slides, like it's a single tweetable line. Like I'm saying, I'm not going to do this paragraph about empathy. I'm going to say, read less minds, ask more questions. And then I'm going to do a joke that less should be fewer. Cause if you're into grammar, you do that. But then I'll say, but less was a better rhythm and rhythm is a dancer. So I went with less. And so like, I'm going to layer all these things.
Yep.
Like one of my best points, I tell a story about Bose. We lost empathy and customers wanted colors of headphones and we didn't care about color. We cared only about sound quality. And so I say we ignored that need and Dr. Dre and Beats didn't, and which is true. And then I say we broke the first rule of electronics. We forgot about Dre. And like 1% of the audience is going to lose it because they're in a serious business meeting where I just did a callback to an Eminem line from years ago. And so the people that don't get it won't feel offended because it didn't cost them anything.
Nope.
But the people who did get it, our relationship just went so much deeper, so much faster.
Yeah.
And so, that's to me, that's what humor does. It brings people into the conversation.
Well, and you've helped me, John, and that's how your social media has continued to grow, is you're bringing people in, because it's disheartening. Disarming. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Disheartening is not the right word.
I'm trying to depress people.
Sheesh,
I just want, it doesn't feel like there's enough sadness in the world right now. I'm like, oh, is that all we have? A global pandemic, economic crisis?
I'm going to dishearten you with some bad jokes about Dre. So I've heard you say this before too, as someone who's written a book, got another one coming, and I don't do well with, you've really helped me with this of like, how much do you talk about it? How much do you get out there? And I've heard you say, and maybe it's through a friend, like through Carlos or somebody, but like, just when you're starting to get uncomfortable, you're doing it too much, is probably about the time that you're actually doing it enough. Is that a fair statement?
Well, and what I'll say is the people who worry about doing it too much aren't doing it too much. The people who don't worry about that are the ones that are like, Sunday, like, no. And then the other thing is that I just remind people, like, you're the only one seeing all your tweets. That's you. Right. Just you. And so, like, I'll be on this has happened probably 5 or 6 times. I'll be on a flight or I'll be out and about, and somebody go, oh, hey, I love your books. I'm your biggest fan. And I'll go, have you read Finish, my latest one? I go, never heard of it. And this is somebody who's saying, I like your work. Biggest fan, right. I'm your biggest fan. I follow you. And I go, oh, that's right. They never, like, so no. And it's not comfortable to me. It's really not. But I want to be able to continue to do this. So I always tell authors specifically, just next time write a diary. Put it on your nightstand. You don't have to talk about that at all. But if you make a commitment with a publisher and you believe in it, like, and you love it, like, and you need to figure out, and do it in your own way. Like, I'm not a great, like, part of it is figuring out, okay, well, how would I communicate about this? Where is it honest? Where does it fit my voice? So if I'm not a great, like, multi-level, like, okay, I'm going to do a big funnel about my book. That's not but for other people, they love that. That's great. That's just not so I'm going to use humor. They're going to use, a system that's different. That's fine. But I still think you have to do it. And it's not comfortable. Like, it's just not, good. I'm on book 7, like, and I know I'm already creating the stuff that's going to support that from a humor perspective and from a sales perspective. And then you make a game out of it. It has to be a game. Like, it has to be a really fun game.
So, John, you a couple more questions. You've worked from home for a while now, and I feel like you've got some really good practices. And there's a lot of people, leaders listening, who this is still kind of new for them, like disciplines or things that even the walk-up song or the things that you do. What are 1 or 2 practical things you could tell our listeners that go, man, if you work from home, here's some things I've learned over these years that help me get things done, because you and I both have personalities that we could really quickly not do anything and have as much fun doing that. What are 1 or 2 of those practical things for you?
Well, for me, so, like, one of them is I've joked about this, but I'll tell people, like, put on pants. Like, put on, like, the American dream of working from home in your pajamas is a garbage dream. Like, agreed. Nobody accomplishes great things in pajamas. Like, a robe has never conquered the world. Like, by day 3, flannel feels like failure. And I joke about that, but the truth is, getting dressed is a cue. So what happened for a lot of people is they used to have 15 cues that it was time to go. So when I walked out the door, that was a cue. Driving to work was a cue. The sound my feet made on the lobby floor at the office was a cue. Break room coffee was a cue. And then all of a sudden they lose every single cue and they don't create new ones. So you need to create, okay, when I'm putting on shoes because that's a cue that I need to go, or here's the space. If you work in every part of your house, you never get a cue and you never stop working. Like, that's the other problem is
that's the other problem.
Forgot that the whole, like, you can work from everywhere, from anywhere, turned into you have to work from everywhere. Like, when somebody posts a picture of them by the pool with a computer and goes, today's office, I feel like you just ruined the pool. Like, if you had a boss that said to you, hey, remember, on vacation, I expect you to have your laptop at the pool. You'd be like, right. This guy sucks. She's the worst. But we've all done that. So I think part of it is, like, you get a dedicated space. And then you also remember that, like, you've gained back commuting time. So don't try to, like, one of the worst mistakes you can make working from home is to try to just replicate the same exact day you had before. Because you're going to be so furious at your kids because they're going to interrupt you. And you're like, this never used to happen. Yeah, you're right. Your kid never drove to your office, got through the security guard, and poked their head over their cubicle. Of course not. You had like 42 protections. You have 0 right now. Or you put a sign on your door that said, Daddy's working. Yeah, tell that to a 4-year-old. Let me know how they respect that boundary. So you have to have like tons of grace, you know, and the other challenge is I used to be able to say, go to a coffee shop when you have something really important to do. We don't have access to that.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. But then I get really specific about, okay, here's kind of the handful of must-dos I can do today.
Yeah.
Like I need to do this handful of things, not 50, not 100. Like, and sometimes if I'm having a hard time, I'll go, what are the things that if I don't do them, other people suffer? Like, and by suffer, I mean, I owe this piece of the project to them and they don't get to move it on, and that'll suck for them. Okay, there's other people involved in this. It's not just me. And so I'll try to get as specific as possible with that. So stuff like that helps.
I love it. One more question, and then a couple lightning questions, because I know you can hit those quick. But what's the next project for you? What are you thinking about right now? What are you working on?
Well, I have a book coming out in the spring about overthinking, which I think is going to be my biggest book I've ever written. Me and the PhD who helps me research asked 10,000 people if they struggle with overthinking, and 99.5% said yes. And so the audience is huge. The need is huge. And then the core promise, a lot of books about overthinking go, get out of your, like stop thinking, stop doing it. And my opinion is, why would I turn off this amazing machine? Like, I have an amazing mind that can think. I just need to think the right things. So I'm not like, the idea of telling an overthinker to stop thinking, like tell a bird to stop flying, like tell a fish to stop swimming. Like, I'm going to think a lot, but imagine if I was able to harness that with the right things, like what I could accomplish. And in my opinion, overthinking is one of the most expensive things companies invest in without even knowing. It's slower decisions, it's expensive. And so I'm excited about that. And then I'm building my YouTube channel. I'm working on that, and like, it's awkward and it's clunky, but it's teaching me too that I think leaders have a really hard time learning something new because we're not afraid of change or afraid of looking foolish. And so like when somebody tells me, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking, and go, no, you're not. You publicly speak all day. You do it every day. You're afraid of looking foolish on stage. So let's figure that out. And so figuring out YouTube is helping me go, okay, how do I get from the valley of like going through where it's really, really challenging to the other side where I get better at it. But I don't get to get there unless I do some awkward, slow stuff. And be humble about it. My wife said, I don't know that you have the humility to make it through the learning, cycle of this. And what she meant was, you have 300,000 people on Twitter. You have 6,000 YouTube subscribers. Like, that's 2%. Like, when I post a video, I get 85 views on YouTube. It would be way easier to run back to Instagram, get the quick hit of 2,000 people watching the video. But I'm trying to build something long-term, and I'm trying to teach leaders, you can't like just stay in this same spot. Like, to learn the reason you get stuck is that when people are always like continue to lead and continue to learn, they stop learning. I think a lot of it out of the humility of what the new thing will cost you.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. All right. Couple quick lightning questions.
Sure.
Best marriage advice you've ever been given?
You and I, John Woodall, dude. John freaking Woodall. He said that in every marriage, there's a how person and a wow person. And the wow person is like, I got 1,000 ideas. And the how person goes, how are you going to do that? And the wow person feels attacked. And so learning, that when I say something to Jenny I'm the wow person, I got this idea. I don't say, and I'm going to do it tomorrow and invest $1,000. I say it's just something to think about. And then she doesn't ask me 50 how questions. She kind of goes, I'll ask you in 2 weeks because you'll probably will have forgotten the idea.
You'll forget.
So that, how and wow. John Woodall, man.
John Woodall. Favorite movie of all time?
I'd probably say probably Good Will Hunting. Like, I love Good Will Hunting.
That's a great one.
Still, I've seen that one 1 billion times. That or like Dead Poet Society.
Yeah, my 3 years of seminary in Boston gives me such an appreciation for that Boston accent.
Oh yeah,
and
that's what it's like.
It's fantastic. So, best leadership idea that you've kind of learned and carried on with you.
The one I always talked about this with my dad. Said, keep people in your life who aren't on your payroll, so that they can give you real advice. Because if your close network is all paid by you, there's always a line where they're going to pull back because they're going to go, if I really tell this person this, I'll lose my job and my mortgage and my family. So and so I've always thought that was good advice.
That's good.
And then Jeff Schinneberger years ago said, is your wife think you're amazing? I was like, not really. He's like, good. He's like, you'll get lost in influence if you have a wife pouring gas on the me
Mm.
fire. Like
Mm.
if she's like, we deserve all it, or like I need to have Jenny not be impressed, and still love me and support me, but not
Right.
be like, oh man, that tweet was amazing. Like you are so like that's helpful.
All right. And I know you love music, so this is going to be a hard one for you, but if you were to, you had one band and just their whole collection, but you could listen to that for the rest of 2020, which band is that? But there was only one.
I mean, I guess I would probably say like Counting Crows for me.
Oh,
Like I love, that's the bit, like there's all this research about how certain albums, if you hear them at a certain age, are the albums that stay with you for the rest of your life. And so like August and Everything After, like that was the one. It's kind of like the question, like what food would you eat? But like
right.
that, I would say the Counting Crows probably, because I think they also have some albums I haven't even heard. Like they've done more albums, like, and I would probably go like, okay, I'll rediscover those. You've got, they did the MTV Unplugged, which was really good.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably supposed to have this really obscure answer, like some band no one's heard of, so I look cool. Like, there's a German synth pop band you probably don't know about, Tyler. Don't worry about it. Like, but the truth is, like, I'm
not listening to him anyway.
Yeah, I love the Counting Crows.
Mine's Bon Jovi, just so you know. Like, it's not complicated. It's Bon Jovi. I listened to it. VH1 before dinner. They had the top 5 countdown growing up. And at Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer was #1 for like 8 months straight. And I wouldn't go to dinner until that song was done. And so I feel you, John. Like I got certain, but it's right. Man.
Mr. Jones, I'm still like round here. Like, so there's, I would say that would be my answer. I was going to say like, I write to like ambient music. So that would have been an answer, like Johan Johansson, like people from like Iceland that release like Sigur Rós. But like, I know eventually I'd be like, say some words.
Yeah, it's going to be, what did I say, disheartening?
Yeah, it'll be disheartening, like my tweets.
So the YouTube channel and other ways for people to keep up with you, what's the best way for them to do
YouTube, author Jon Acuff. So if you go to youtube.com/author Jon Acuff, I don't know who was already there before me that's named Jon Acuff. That's pretty disappointing to be real. Jon Acuff on Twitter, Jon, Jon Acuff on Instagram, and acuff.me, acuff.me. And my last book was called Finish, and it's about finishing the goals you start because nobody finishes.
John, I'm grateful for your friendship, man. I even, a few months ago, you just called, you knew I was doing my own thing, and I'm just grateful for those investments into me. And so thanks for all the other leaders that you've invested in over the years.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for letting me do this, Tyler.
Thank you, John. And as he mentioned there at the end, you can go to acuff.me, and that gives you all the information you want to know with his books, with his social. I think his social is at Jon, Jonacuff, Jon Acuff. And you can find out more. And tell me, like, listening to that, first of all, he's hilarious. But I love how intentional his humor is and how intentional he is with people and with his writing and with his work. And so I think if there's anything we can kind of finish this episode with, it's really an understanding that each of us have a responsibility to work really hard at the space that God's entrusted to us. And so even with this podcast, my wife's been on me. She's like, why have you not released the next episode? I'm like, I've just been so busy, but I just want to apologize to all of you. I really care about this. And I've got a lot going on in some good ways, and I can't wait in the next few weeks to talk more about it. So thanks for sticking with it. Thanks for staying with us, and let's keep growing and becoming more and more the life-giving leaders that God's called us to be. So we'll talk to you next time.